You're about to see how important horses have been in our history. People all over the world have used horses to help them both in fighting and daily life. What role do horses play in your life today?
People use horses for horse racing?
Thankfully, they don't play much of a role. When I was younger, I took horseback riding class, and the horses weren't well trained, and one tried to bite me and another one kicked me.
Horses don't usually play any role in my life. In the summer, sometimes I ride them out in East Hampton or Amagansett, but not really. I don't really like horses that much.
They don't really play any part in my life.
I don't ride horses, but my parents do.
None.
Around where I live, I see a lot of people riding horses for enjoyment. A lot of people love riding horses. I see them on the roads, and I actually have a friend who competes in horse competitions. So it seems like a fun thing to do.
All my sisters used to ride horses, and they don't anymore. And otherwise, they don't really play a part in my life.
I think horses are just like an outlet for people now because they're very caring, sweet animals.
Today, I think horses are mostly like a farm thing and tourism. They're more of like a novelty than a necessity.
The Roman Empire, threatened by Eastern horse armies. Europe, invaded by Islamic armies from the south. From the north, Vikings attack by land and sea. The European horse-born warrior, the knight, rules the medieval battlefield. In Japan, another form of knight becomes the symbol of a proud warrior culture. The 5th century. Rome's empire stretches from Britain to the deserts of Egypt. Protected by Roman legions, the empire is at peace. Its people live under a new religion from the east, Christianity. But even farther east, beyond the limits of a known world, another force is sweeping westward. Christian Rome calls the leader of this eastern force the Scourge of God. His horsemen call him Attila the Hun. By 444 AD, Attila was one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. Like his people, he was shaped by the steppe, the hard land of his birth. The steppe is a vast expanse of grassland, like the prairies of North America. 3,000 miles wide and 500 miles deep, it stretches from Eastern Europe to China. Freezing winds and low rainfall mean no crops will grow there. There is only rough grass for grazing. When their sheep and goats exhaust a pasture, the steppe people move on to the next. In their nomadic existence, life and death depend on the mastery of one animal, the horse. The people of the steppe took thousands of horses from the wild, spending only hours to break them in. Through sheer force and fear, they bent the horse to their will. The horse was their transport, their meeting place, their bed. They even warmed raw meat between a horse's thighs. A Roman writer described one group of steppe people, the Huns, as glued to their horses. The Huns tamed the horse through fear, and with the horse they spread fear.
I think it was the horseman's skill as a herdsman which, in fact, made them so terrifying to fight. The steppe horsemen, who understood so well how crowds of animals behaved, were able to apply that knowledge in conflict with crowds of human beings opposite. They knew how to break it up into groups. They knew how to cut out and select the strong human whom others followed in exactly the same way as they cut out the most dashing or daring horse. Once you can select the leader in any group and dispose of him, once you can use the dynamics of the herd to divide it, to break it up into groups, of course you're well on the way to dominating it and to beating it.
"2,000 years before the Huns threatened Rome, the steppe's people sold horses to the Assyrians for their war chariots. The Assyrian war machine needed horses in quantities only the steppe could provide. It was here that horses were first domesticated, bred from an unpromising animal that looked like these tough little creatures. For Servalski's horse, which still survives in the wilds of the steppe. This horse was good at pulling Assyrian chariots, but its back couldn't support the weight of a man. This simple fact may explain why early horse warfare was chariot warfare. From the Assyrians, the steppe warriors got the design for the composite, or recurved bow, the charioteer's weapon. The composite bow was made with layers of wood, animal tendon and horn, held together by a glue of fish bone and skin. When the glued layers had dried, the bow was forced back against its natural shape. This short bow was then strung to a high tension, often 150 pounds of pressure or more. Its arrows were light, weighing an ounce or less. A single warrior could carry 50 into battle. Yet these arrows could penetrate armor at 100 yards, and were accurate up to 300 yards. When the Assyrian warriors emerged on the frontiers of Rome, the empire's legions faced a new foe, a new weapon, and a new way of fighting. Between 440 and 450 AD, the eastern provinces of Rome bribed the horsemen of the steppe with 6 tons of gold to keep them from attacking. But they kept coming, and Rome, the world's greatest empire, crumbled.
Whereas Western infantry formation would tend to have its power in the center, the steppe horse formation tended to have its power at the edges, out on the flanks. the ends of the crescent curled round, which was both a physical danger and psychological intimidation, because it inspired the fear in its opponents that they were going to get surrounded. Another very worrying thing for Westerners was that it was very difficult to identify whereabouts in the steppe horseman's formation the leader was. If he made himself inconspicuous, he was admired for his cunning by those that he led. The steppe formation also came and went. It attacked and then it went away.
These are the tactics of hit and run. The steppe horsemen left no written record of their conquests, but their legacy survives in the mountains of Turkey, where horsemen display the warrior skills of their forebears in a game called Chariot. Each man tries to hit his opponent with a blunt stick. There's no dishonor in running away. Retreat is a crucial tactic. In Chariot, riders have only one horse. In battle, the steppe warriors brought a string of horses to pursue the hit-and-run tactics all day long. Guerrilla warfare had entered the battlefield forever. 1,500 years later, Chinese leader Mao Zedong would incorporate the tactics of the steppe fighters into his own handbook on guerrilla warfare.
Maintain the offensive. Give the enemy no rest. Harass him continuously until he is exhausted, is dispersed, and can be annihilated. When he advances, withdraw. When he attacks, disperse.
The technically superior Romans who were defeated by Attila's horsemen achieved just one great victory over the Huns. At Chalon in northern France, the Romans stemmed the advance of the Huns. The victory decisively proved the horse's value in battle. The Romans prevailed only by hiring mounted hit-and-run fighters of their own. 23 years after Attila's death, the Roman Empire in the West was extinct. The foot soldier, who had dominated warfare since the days of Alexander the Great, was eclipsed. For 1,000 years, the horse warrior would rule the battlefield. Soon, the horse would bring another invader from the east, one driven by revolutionary motivation for war.
In April 248 AD, the Emperor Philip staged the Millennium Games. Rome was 1,000 years old and celebrating its birthday in the only way it knew how. With a grandiose spectacle of ritual, races, and bloodletting. As Romans celebrated, barbarian armies hammered the empire's frontiers. Rebellions were breaking out in the provinces. With their world collapsing into chaos, the Roman thirst for macabre distraction grew. The death toll from the Millennium Festival was spectacular even by Roman standards. Noisy crowds paraded statues of the gods through the streets. Priests heaped offerings in front of the temples, praying for a return of Rome's good fortune. Nature itself seemed to be conspiring against the Roman Empire. Climatic changes in Central Asia were freezing the high plateaus and forcing its nomadic peoples to migrate. Shut out of the Chinese lowlands, they had no option but to move west. As they headed for Europe, they pushed all the tribes in their path further west as well. In the 3rd century, wave after wave of uprooted peoples were pushed up against Rome's northeastern frontier. Goths, Slavs, Vandals, and more. In 259 AD, Persians attacked. Rallying to the empire's defense, the Emperor Valerian marched his legions hundreds of miles to confront them. Weakened by illness and exhaustion, they were massacred and the emperor captured. Eager to humiliate the emperor to the maximum, the Persian king used Valerian as a stepping stool to mount his horse. Rome's humiliation was complete. Beset by enemies without and turmoil within, the empire tried desperately to tighten its grip. Along with the army, the whole apparatus of imperial power began to swell. Bureaucracies multiplied. The people who oversaw the postal system, the speculatores, had become the world's first full-fledged intelligence operation. Spies were everywhere, reporting any signs of rebellion in the provinces. Emperors were obsessed with maintaining control. Rome was moving slowly but surely towards the totalitarian regimes that would preside over its final collapse. In 285 AD, realizing the empire was becoming bloated and top-heavy, the Emperor Diocletian embarked on reforms to streamline it. He split the imperial bureaucracies into two linked empires, 2 emperors and 2 armies. He froze prices, putting the brakes on runaway inflation, and banned a subversive cult called Christianity. In the short term, Diocletian's reforms were astonishingly successful.